Nowhere on the internet have I been able to find how to use a Shiwi. It's really frustrating because for me, the packet instructions don't really explain how to position a Shiwi for success every time. But today I'm going to run through it because that information isn't out there still. I'll also run through some things to consider before you buy one if you haven't got one already. And then I'll talk about different techniques that you can use for different climates. This is not paid content. I just want to share this information because I think that it's going to be really useful for a lot of people. I've only owned Shiwi products, so I can't really help you with explaining how to use all of the other devices. There's heaps of different options out on the market at the moment. This is strictly just about how to use a Shiwi. And one more thing, I'm not going to pee on screen. We don't need to do that. I can explain to you how to do that without seeing another video of someone weeing down their leg. And the whole point of this is to help you avoid doing that. If you're new here, my name is Lucy Barnard and I'm making an attempt to be the first woman to walk the length of the Americas with my dog Wombat. We have been walking since 2017. I'm currently in Mexico, which is more than half of the distance along my journey. So this is my Shiwi, and it comes with two sections. So there's the funnel and the straw. Climbers tend to just use the funnel, or people who can go without having to worry about how far away the stream falls from their body. But I mainly use it with the straw, and that is because it helps with when there's wind and the liquid wants to come back around at you, or just for better accuracy so that you're not getting backsplash from the ground. So you start by putting the two pieces together, which is a firm fit. And then the very first thing that you're going to want to consider is your clothing choice, whether or not you're wearing tights or pants with a zip. I've used both without a problem, but it just means that you need to use this part as leverage to hold your piece of clothing items down and out of the way. So the first thing that you need to know is that the front part of the Shiwi is here, and this is the back part of the Shiwi. When you are positioning it, you need to insert the Shiwi under your clothing and underwear, and you find your clitoris with the front part of the Shiwi so that it taps on the front edge and you hold it there. That is really the secret to making absolutely sure that you have accuracy every single time. But also, one step further is that in the instructions it says place it against you, and that's not really accurate. And I fully acknowledge that every person is different in anatomy. But if you're able to fold over your labia, your lady lips, over either side, then that is also really important, not just for accuracy, but also for making sure that you have a clean wee, and that will help you avoid having to have toilet paper. So at this point, I really want to emphasize that it's really important what kind of underwear you use, because if you're going to use underwear that has the little pocket inside, what can happen is the Shiwi gets caught under your underwear, and then that forms like a bridge to your clothing, and then the urine will hit your pocket, and then the wee will run down your legs, and it's a disaster. So if you're using that kind of underwear, make sure that you miss it. But I think this has happened to me enough times now that I can say that if you're hiking, try not to hike with underwear that has a pocket. If you haven't bought one already, there are some things that you should really consider before buying one. And the first one is that there are two types of Shiwis. There's the original, which is this one, and then there's a Flexi, which is made out of silicone. I would recommend not having a silicone Shiwi if you either have tights that you wear while you're hiking, which is my preference, because the material is too firm against your body to hold the shape, and you lose the suction or the vacuum, and the air pocket that inevitably opens while you're going will then cause an accident. And the other thing to consider too is it's a wide mouth entry, and so after you've used it, you don't have that drip-free experience that you have with this. So with the original, you don't need toilet paper, whereas with Flexi, you really do. The second thing that you want to consider is making sure you get one that comes with a container. I find this pretty useful just for privacy, but also you want something to contain them, because although they are water repellent, they do still, in my experience, the urine hangs around. So you don't want to just be chucking that back in your bag. And a lot of people might want to use Ziploc bags, but for me, one, I like the privacy, and two, I don't want to be like going through single-use plastics like that. So that's just another thing to consider before purchasing one. Another thing to consider is, believe it or not, what color you choose. My original one was orange, and I got it because I wanted it to be really visible and I wanted to be able to grab it as quickly as possible for those moments where urgency just creeps up on me. And after a while, all I could see was dehydrated, dehydrated, dehydrated. So I changed to one that's a little bit more clinical and gives me the feeling of hygienic. Uh, but I still chose a color that was clearly visible from where it is sitting outside my pack. And then the final thing that you want to consider is what kind of clothing you wear while you're hiking. I've already mentioned this, but there's a considerable difference between whether you get one that's made out of silicone or hard plastic if you're wearing leggings or pants that don't have a fly. And of course, remembering your underwear can play a factor in whether or not you have a misuse. And now I have some warnings. First, I'd like to talk about what the packet says. So I've already gone over this, but it says place it against yourself. And I think if you're going to go and use it for the first time, that's ill-advised because just doesn't work that way. The packet also says practice in the shower. When you are in the shower and you will go to use your Shewee, something to consider is that in the outdoors you're going to be wearing your hiking shoes, and so immediately the way that your hips are sitting and the way that your body is positioned is different to the way it is in the shower. If you're in the shower and you're going to practice weeing, you're probably going to have your legs further apart, for example, or if you're in a curved bathtub, your legs are going to be splayed a little bit differently. So I would, rather than practicing in the shower per se, I would say either practice in the shower with your shoes on and clothes on, or practice going into the toilet. The toilet's a little bit more difficult because it's really, at first, or for a long time, I didn't know exactly how far out the stream was going to go. But I think that that's far more useful than just practicing straight in the shower. And now for the advanced tips. The first one is that if you're in a really windy climate, when I've used the Shewee, the urine has whipped around me and caught me on my clothing. And so the first thing that I will say to you is, if you're in a windy climate, stand close to a tree and place the edge against a tree or something where the stream can flow down. And this next one really grosses people out. I've talked about having to go to the toilet in the tent before, but life is life. If you're alpine climbing, if you're in the snow, if you're in severe winds, there's no way that you're going to climb out of your tent and get frostbite on your ass. So you really need to consider the idea of using your Shewee in the tent with a bottle, it works perfectly well. I would highly recommend not using the straw in this instance because you're going to have to pull the straw out of the bottle and then you're going to have liquid attached to the straw. So don't do that. But I will say that when you're kneeling in your tent, if you're in a tent where you're able to do so, make sure that you follow all of the instructions in terms of placement, but also push your hips forward so that you're able to either wee into your bottle or your vestibule with success. And finally, some notes on health. So the first thing is that I wouldn't worry so much about bacterial growth on the Shewee itself and keeping it clean. You can rinse it as you go. When I pass a stream, I tend to clean mine out, or I soak it in a bucket when I have the opportunity to. They are treated with an antimicrobial something or other that keeps them clean. And finally, one thing that I have noticed after using a Shewee for such an extended period is that I have a greater sense of urgency more frequently. So I just want to say that if you experience bladder health issues, maybe consult a doctor about it first, because I'm pretty confident that my pelvic floor muscles and just my general bladder health has been weakened after long-term use. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope that this helps you on your Shewee journey. If you've been searching for this sort of information and you're grateful for it, please consider giving me a little small super thanks to help me on my journey becoming the first woman to walk the length of the earth. And just one last thing, if you see this video and you want to add to it, make sure that you mention me in your comments so that I can learn from your tips as well. And if you want to make a whole video and you're getting information from me that you're using, please tag me or mention me in the video so that, again, we're collaborating rather than competing. Cool, thank you.